I've got my easel, it's a little high, but that's okay. So I'm just gonna do just the bud of that flower. And I'm not gonna work huge. I've got my paper, it's about that size. I wanna leave room for a frame. I wanna leave room for some space around it. So I'm gonna set, because it's a taller subject, not wider, so I'm gonna set my top and kind of my bottom. Because you know that feeling you have when you're drawing and everything keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger when you correct something and it starts going off the page. I'm going to set my top and my bottom and tell myself my drawing is not going above those limits. The width can change, but the height is set. And I can set that here and just do it this. I can, any dimension I want, but that really helps me out, gives me some limit with the whole drawing. Okay, so maybe I'll go a little smaller. Let's do that. You're gonna see me use very light, very soft, very long lines as I work, and that's a way to visually keep everything shiftable and movable. So I've got this edge here. I'm just trying to get the angle of that. I've got this here. Now your line of sight is going to be a little bit different than what I'm looking at, but I'm looking for the main shapes. This shape is like a long cylinder. I've got a flattish, broader upper opening part. It's all just, where does this white area, that petal that comes out, where does that cut across the cylinder? I'm looking at all those, just those different shapes. How far out does this go compared to the rest of it? And by working this way, it forces my eye to just keep moving over everything, because we tend to get very focused in on certain aspects of certain areas. But anytime we zoom in, we tend to exaggerate and make it bigger. So knowing that, I want my eyes to keep looking back and forth, comparing things. But trying to tell your eyes to do something is virtually impossible. So by making my hand do it, my eyes will do it. So if I'm comparing this size of this shape, let's go here. And I could work this up for 10 hours if this was a really involved drawing, but I'm not gonna go to that extent. Now the stem I didn't include with my limit, but my stem is gonna come off here just to get it in there. So got that little bitty, this little thing that kind of comes out, the upper part of this petal. I try not to name things as I'm doing this, but it's kind of like a little flange thing that, and where does this cut across? When I look at where that whole petal cuts across, is it right here? And it goes down a bit. It's hard to talk and work at the same time, but if you guys have any questions, by the way, feel free to ask, because I don't expect everybody to just sit down and be a pro at this. This takes a lot of time to learn, but it's a way to get some kind of structure. And if you can even just explore it a little bit, it's a benefit. When you pick your subject, just pick something a little more on the simple side. That'll help you a lot, because even though this seems like a simple shape, there's still a lot going on there. But that's okay. So here, I'm going to start to just hone in, because I want to be able to trace something out. So I'm going to go a little darker with my lines just to show you.
What pencil number are you using?
I use for block-in, I use a H, 2H, or HB. So kind of right in the middle of the scale. Good question. I don't go too soft, then your lines are going to get too dark. And I don't want too dark or too hard, or you just won't get much of a line at all. So let's do this. Okay, so let's get that. So I'm just looking for my big shapes. If my big shapes are good, my smaller shapes are going to fit in really good.
And when you say shapes, you're not talking about shadow. So I just saw you put a line.
Yes. This is a shadow line.
Okay.
That's not a form line. It's not
Right.
like the flower all of a sudden has a new petal coming out here.
Yeah.
That's totally shadow. So that's another reason with a setup like this, it gives me more information on my subject when I can see where the shadows are. So even on the stalk or this cylinder shape down here, which I think I need to thin that a little bit, it's looking a little too wide for that height. I want that nice slender feel. And I'm using my kneaded eraser to an extent, but I'll go to my stick eraser in a minute. But there's a shadow on this side of the flower, and that's light struck. So if I just kind of feel out where that is, I know it's not halfway, it's less than halfway. So as I put this in, that looks a little, well, little too tall or actually too long, this shape here. So let's cut that off. And do you notice I'm looking at this edge as if I could hold a stick up and use one line that conveys that whole edge. When I want to make a change and push that edge up, I don't sit here and, okay, it's that, it's this. I don't do all the detailed in and outs of that contour. I just use one line to convey that shift, and then I look and go, okay, that's better. This shape, this size is smaller for that width. And then do I have to change this back here? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Like that. And then I can just, once I've made my correction with my eraser, I can just cut it off. And yeah, that looks a little better. Now I do have a lot of undulations in there. At some point I've got to go, okay, this comes in. Again, I'm using all straight lines with this method. This angle wasn't far enough down. Let's go there. I do have that little thing coming off the end. That's a nice little accent. If I look at this line, I don't know if you can see that, down that flower. If I hold up a stick in space, it's this angle. So maybe it's that. This comes out. So if I bring this down, that gives me that little bitty prong. That's real small, but if I focus in on it, I'm going to end up making it really big. So I'm aware of that, and I'm just careful not to do that. I'm going to go to my stick eraser. There's stick erasers. These come in handy. And let's get a little more. So this isn't going to be exacting for my tracing, but I think you'll get the idea. And then I can start turning form. Again, I use all straight lines. I start to facet. If there's a curve, I'll just facet the curve. What I would want to get this down to if I was tracing it out or working right off this drawing is a thin, refined, contour edge. With a tracing, you can always refine it once it's on the good paper, so it doesn't have to be done perfectly. Not by perfectly, I don't mean all the detail doesn't have to be in there, but. And I would step back and really look, because when you get some distance from your subject, see how I brought that back out, and I just noticed that's too much. So I've got to bring that back in. That also gives this space, although that can come a little closer. That makes this more upright. Sometimes the thing you think you have to change might not be what you have to change, and it's something else. So if I brought this edge further up, this has to go further up because it doesn't meet up at that corner where I'm sitting. It's further in. Do I have enough room for that with this? And I think I do. So let's just say it's there. And I'll get this done. And again, the reason all light lines is just so it stays shiftable and erasable and not, in my mind or subconsciously, set too early. Let's get that shadow. And I'm always aware of the form of the flower, like that shadow, this back edge of shadow, that flower petal is coming up. So it's not going to be straight because it's a rounding form. So I'm going to put a little bit of roundness, almost like an ellipse or part of an ellipse in there. This one I can go straighter because there's a little bit of a curve to it, but I think that's good enough. Get this shadow in here. Going a little dark just so you guys can see. Yeah, I would spend more time with it, but for the sake of what we're doing, I think that's going to be good.